This could be a poem about pain, but it's not. This could be about justice, but it's not. It's not about a festival of raised arms inciting smiling bullets. No, it's just about bullets. Just bullets, period. Bullet lonely. Bullet needs warm flesh. That's what Bullet told to do, trained to do. Holster to claustrophobic escape, to a burning caress, to push through skin like moving tunnels, to excavate with first hello. Bullet likes foaming mouths, likes the thick ripples made when wind hits blood puddles. Bullet likes how muscle fibers massage its back on entry, but muscle tissue too boring. Bullet likes bone better, likes the fine bone, likes how the ricochet is more fun and more lethal. Bullet likes how random pain can be easily inflicted, but Bullet rarely seen. Bullet runs too fast to be coveted. Bullet always covered, covered in human, in smoke, in blood, always covered, never seen, only Bullet's footsteps examined, its pathways reenacted, its fingerprints analyzed, so Bullet gets jealous. Bullet jealous of how blood cells clamor in unison like family. How they hold each other close. How after Bullet's gaping handshake leaps onto the concrete, they all join hands and sing hymns. Bullet wants family too. Bullet wants family. Bullet wants to be plural, so Bullet threatens T, kills R, and kidnaps S. Bullet now bullets. Bullets now swarm like bees. Like locusts, like religion, like control, but still, Bullet wants more than control, more than religion. Bullet wants to worship, to be worshipped. Bullet needs more than just family. See, family just regurgitated pain, gunpowder in a cold embrace. Bullet wants more than warm flesh, more than puncture, more than open wound. Bullet wants to be remembered. Bullet wants to aim high, but Bullet can't aim by itself, so it aspires to be infamous, like the American dream. Bullet wants the American dream, like memories of bedtime stories with Malcolm, Martin, Oscar, Amadou. Bullet jealous again. See, those bullets went Hollywood. Bullet wants to be a screenplay adapted for ghetto boys. Other Bullets gone indie. Wants to be a cult. Bullet wants success to be admired. Wants Netflix original series. Bullet wants red carpet, VIP. Wants news stories, primetime coverage. Wants to be interviewed by Barbara Walters and Oprah. Bullet wants a Facebook page. Better yet, Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. Hashtag, yes. Bullet wants his own hashtag. Hashtag best bullet ever. Hashtag dopest bullet since Crispus Attucks. Hashtag dopest bullet since Lincoln, since Trayvon, since Eleanor Bumpers. But Bullet needs PR, so Bullet hires an agent. Bullet learns Spanish and practices street slang and bonics. Bullet studies Swahili and penal codes. Bullet gets to read for the role. Bullet kills the audition and flown to Missouri for the first day of shooting, but Bullet scared. Bullet scared of lights, of action, of body cameras, but Bullet steady. Bullet focused. Bullet believes Bullet can do anything it wants to do with the right motivation, so Bullet wins. Bullet gets casted for the next Gen of 6 sequels. Bullet gets used to the glitz. Bullet wins. Bullet gets nominated for the Oscar. Bullet wins. Bullet gets a home in the hills. Bullet gets famous. Bullet has fans. Bullet wins. And when asked how Bullet made it so big, Bullet responds, I was just pointed in the right direction.
One. After the hospital, everything tastes like copper. I can still feel the phantom EKG wires snaking my chest, a faulty switchboard. I bite my own tongue to know the metal, a polluted river running down my throat. 2. My father is tired of doctors, tired of the shitty magazine selection and clinic waiting rooms. I got that from him. It's funny how inheritance travels down the bloodline. How I can't remember my father teaching me anything I ever learned from him. Blood is mostly water and salt. Our families make oceans of our bodies. 3. Listen, the heart in this poem is not a metaphor. When I say my heart is broken, I don't mean there's a girl. 4. There is a girl. 5. The emergency room physician only tells me things I already know. There are 4 chambers to the heart. The heart circulates oxygenated blood to the extremities. Blood is mostly water and salt. 6. Years earlier, I'm in a clinic waiting room. My father lies prone in a hospital bed, and 2 doctors argue about whether his heart attack was massive or only very large. 7. The cardiologist asked me to count to 15. He shows me the EKG readout. The 15 seconds my heart lost its rhythm. 8. There is a girl. We go down to the river and sit in the shallow end. Watch a father and son catch and release the fish on their line. I don't take off my shirt. I can still feel the wires for weeks after the hospital. 9. My inheritance is a bundle of EKG wires. The strange arrhythmic heart songs sung by my father and his father before him. This is what it feels like to drown in your family's ocean. 10. The electrophysiologist says my heart will always start itself again after it stops. It's meant to be a comfort. But have you ever been held hostage by your own pulse? Call it coronary Stockholm syndrome. 11. The phlebotomist tells me I have gorgeous veins. My body's slowly opening, a tributary for the needle. Dark clouds blooming in the saline, and I can feel it. 12. Water and salt. 13. My father. 14. 15. The cardiologist asked me to count to 15. What would you do, he says, if your son had no heartbeat for 15 seconds? And there's a special love between a father and the sicknesses he passes down. But listen, this poem is not about love. Or if it is only in the way that every poem is about love. It's about living with fear, but living. It's about the mechanism through which tributaries become oceans. It's about going down to the river after the hospital and watching a father and son reeling in their fishing line. And there is a girl floating at the edges of each sentence, and I could feel her there. Just there.
So I tell you what happened and you start. So I tell you what happened and you start. So I tell you what happened and you start. Hashtag all lives matter. You start defending a grown man sitting on a teenage girl wearing a bikini pointing his gun at fleeing children. Defending firing 20 fatal shots as a man was holding his cell phone. Defending shooting a boy with a toy within seconds of pulling into the park. Defending a group of men choking a man to death as he cried, "I can't breathe." Hashtag all lives matter. You start declaiming from your amoral high ground views supposedly fair, balanced, reasonable, sound. Denigrating our education, supporting segregation, promoting preemptive aggression that causes black lives to be brutally extinguished, asking us to be quiet and polite while justifying racial profiling, while thanking repeat offenders, while questioning our sanity, while asking all the while why blacks don't just take more responsibility for ending unarmed black lives. Hashtag all lives matter. Black lives in institutionalized destitution, black lives under violent coercion, black lives resisting subjugation, black lives kept in debt, black lives seen as threat, the surveillance of black lives, legislation of black lives, the dehumanization of black lives, the degradation of black lives, the normalization of extrajudicial lethal force. Of course, all lives matter. Hashtag that is not what is happening. All lives matter should go without saying. Hashtag it is sadly, disappointingly necessary for us to say Black Lives Matter. So when I tell you what happened, can you say Black Lives Matter? When I tell you what happened, can you say Black Lives Matter? When I tell you what happened, can you say Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
It's difficult to talk about a recent suicide attempt when you're a 40-year-old father celebrating the lives you helped create despite disinterest in your own. I believe in the magic of my daughters, Phoebe and Mia, and they believe in the magic of holidays. When they were younger and sure about God, their Easter remained mystical. My girls hunted for dyed eggs, and I tried to forget the pretty pills. 8 years ago, my colorful personality cracked, shattered cells chipping off my slumping shoulders. I was institutionalized on an Ashen Wednesday, emerged emotionally on dead Easter morning. Back then, my daughters couldn't count to 5150 or pronounce the word institutionalized, so I never explained where I was. Now, me and I paint pictures in the park and we eat French fries. She asked why I don't have a girlfriend. I couldn't explain to her that you first have to like yourself alone. Instead, I say, I only want what's best for my little girl, so I have to be picky. Mia says, I like French fries. I reply, so do I. So do I. Rather than to like things about yourself, it's easier to just like things. Mia draws a blue sky, white clouds, yellow sun, brown smiling me wearing the color purple. I paint a turtle for Phoebe, hoping that she would write me and her last letter would be signed, "I want to grow up to be just like you, Dad." But back then, I felt that wouldn't be wise. My heart wasn't worth handing down. Oversized, under constant operation, growing additional aorta so my ex would have a backup. Its best intentions, locked in a hope chest, full of terrible traits I prayed my girls didn't inherit. I couldn't think, sleep, or share what was wrong when nothing felt right. So after swallowing 48 Tylenol PM, I was rushed in the colors fog to the hospital. The psychiatrist prescribed sleeping pills, decapitating my insomnia with emotional execution. Pale blue Prozac, zombie yellow Zoloft, creamy fluoxetine, volumes in red number 5. I hunted my diet pills down at the pharmacy and I hoarded them in a basket on my bathroom counter. My kids could count to 180, and by October, my youngest called me the Headless Horseman because Daddy was sleepy and hollow. I was too ashamed to tell them that I was just frail and fearful like Ichabod Crane. I stayed emotionally overcast for 5 years until their warm laughter breezes blew out the chemical clouds. I quit antidepressants so my girls would know their real father, so I could hold their hands on Palm Sunday and roll a rock over Easter's past. Let hope spring eternal and celebrate its rebirth with French fries. Watch their inherited dimples deepen with natural smiles. I pray that medical science discovers a way to cure congenital sadness, that my daughters don't discover the doldrums of depression, but stand sturdy on this slow and steady turtle of earth, under a yellow sun in the sky that's not always so blue, inheriting the reinforced heart of a now happy father, who liked French fries, and finally, himself.
I'm sorry, but before I begin, I feel I should forewarn you that this is about my father. In a way, this poem will embody some of his best qualities, especially his knack for telling it like it is. So please excuse the lack of metaphor, the lack of creative imagery, and the wonderful wordplay we all come to enjoy tonight. I apologize again for being such a buzzkill. Do not worry. There are other plenty fantastic poems tonight that you will hear that where you can get that fix. Speaking of fix, my father was one hell of a mechanic. An expert on taking things apart, not so great at putting them back together, however. This poem is a product of those missing parts. Loose screws and lost bolts, but somehow he managed to keep the engine running. My father, a mountain of a man with an infectious grin who taught me handshakes should be delivered with a firm grip, just like hugs. But please keep in mind, my dad is not a bad man, but this poem also embodies the worst of him, like his tendency to break things. My dad grew up in a time where things were built to last, meticulously crafted with purpose. Every good mechanic learns to find purpose, so I can't imagine rebuilding a relationship past its warranty. I can only imagine living as a mountain of a man in a world made of glass. Speaking of glass, no students would ever have to see their father behind 3 inches of it on Father's Day. That shit can leave you shattered. Speaking of shattered, have you ever noticed that broken glass seems to spread out wonderful webs stretched out on catching the light just right? Remember that my pops was a special kind of repairman. You should have seen how much care he put into broken glass webs, how he carefully placed his fist. You could have sworn it was the 4th of July. Speaking of fists, have you ever had shards of mirror caught in the palm of your hand? See, that's one thing my dad and I share, shards from the same mirror. To remind myself we are still looking within the same reflection. To remind myself I don't need to keep the wound festering to look within, that I no longer have to hold the cuts deeper that will continue to cut. My father is one hell of a mechanic. Shouldn't he be the one to fix this? If only he could break glass as easily as his habits, because breaking glass go hand in hand with breaking bad habits. My father is still one hell of a mechanic. I just hope he can fix what's left of this relationship. He's gonna need all the tools he can get.